Hello and welcome back to the Academy. Today we'll be talking about Roll20 and how to prepare an everyday hero's adventure for running on this virtual tabletop. In this episode I'm going to walk you through the process with the Highlander adventure, A Measure of Revenge. When preparing to set up a game for Roll20, generally I will first scan through the adventure and locate a few things. The primary three things I locate on my first scan through are adventure maps, the NPCs for the adventures, and other important images. The maps are generally in a random location in the PDF, though occasionally the maps are in a separate file. The NPCs are usually on the last 2 to 3 pages of the PDF. Also, while I'm going through, I will generally scan for images of the NPCs for the adventure so that way I can make a token for them. You may also find some images that you want to use as handouts, like pictures of the Nacho House, Walt D. Walt, or even the Nacho Wagon. With that said, I'm going to run you through my process and talk you through what I'm doing. Now with this book, the adventure doesn't start until page 49. But before I go there, I'm going to go ahead and grab my snipping tool, and I'm going to use that to take a shot of the main page of the adventure. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to save it right to my desktop, and I'm going to title it Highlander. Okay. Now we'll scroll down to page 49. And this is where I'm going to start going through to find my various images. The first one I come across is going to be this image here of Father Adam. So I'm going to go ahead and once again snip this image. I'm going to name it Father Adam. And I'm going to save that to my desktop once again. And as we go farther down, here we see a picture of Iago. Iago's one of our NPCs, so we're definitely going to want to take a picture of him so we can create a token for that NPC. And here we find our first map on page 58. Now that we have that, I'm just going to scroll through the rest, show you some of the other images. I've already snipped them, so I'm not going to bore you with me snipping every single picture. Like here we have a castle, definitely a good picture to snip for a handout. Here we have Gina and Numa. This is definitely a good picture of a cinematic action sequence that you can pop up to show your players what's going on instead of having to rely solely on description. We got a couple more maps. And here we get to the supporting cast. Here we see Amaldo. We passed his image a little earlier, so that's definitely a character you'd want to make a token of. Then we get down to the extras. These are just your cardboard cutout NPCs, like your generic archer, your generic assassin, your industrious immortal. So as you can see here, it's about the last dozen pages are your NPCs. And then we get down here to Connor McLeod, Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. If you've seen the movies, both of these characters will be familiar to you. the Kurgan. And then we get to our pre-generated heroes. So if you want to run without somebody having to make their character sheets, you got your pre-gens back here as well. So that's our scroll through the book. Now I'm going to pull up my snipped images, which we have right here. Yes, that looks like all the images I'll need. Now that I have all the images clipped, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up Roll20. I'm going to come over here to create new game. I'm going to name the game A Measure of Revenge. Okay. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to pick my character sheet. Everyday Heroes by Evil Genius Games. And there's a preview of our character sheet. I'm going to go ahead and click I'm ready, create game. Here I can choose a file. I'm going to choose Highlander. And this is going to be my cover image for the game. Then I can click here on Settings, Game Settings. I can choose another spot where I could choose the background image. I'm going to choose to allow players to create their own characters. I'm fine with character transfers as well. Default game settings. This allows you to set up your grid size for your maps and your standard map width and height. Turn on dynamic lighting and barriers. Player permissions. I'm not changing any of those. We can set up our content sharing. So if you want to be able to share your core rulebook with your player characters, this is where you turn that on. Or if you don't want to, you can deselect and not share it. Another spot where you can set up your character sheet if you didn't already. So we're going to click Save Changes. Here is where you can set the date and time of your next session, what you're playing. Unfortunately, Everyday Heroes is not listed here, so I generally just set it as D20 Modern. Here you can type in a description of the adventure, so if you are looking for players, you can type that in, so that way when a person is looking for an adventure, they see this, they know what they're getting into. And with that, we're going to go ahead and launch game. Okay, now that we have all of our images snipped and we have the adventure set up in Roll20, this is the screen it brings up for us. So from here, we're going to go ahead and start inputting our maps and images. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my images. I'm going to move it over a little bit. I'm going to grab my camp map. I'm going to drop it down onto the main screen. Once the file uploads, I'm going to drag it up to the top corner. And I'm going to go ahead and count the squares. So this one is 7 by 5. I'm going to shrink it down so that it fits the 7 by 5. I'm going to come up here to the Maps tab. I'm going to click the cog wheel. I'm going to set its size as 7 cells wide by 5 cells tall. Save that setting. There we go. Our map is set to size. We're going to right click, choose Change Layer. and we're going to move it to the map layer. I've made so many mistakes leaving it on the token layer, and you go to move a token and you grab the map and you move the map and everything's all fouled up. So that's an important step to remember, is always to set it on a different layer than your tokens are going to be. So that's how you're going to do a map. If you need to add another map, you can click up here on the map tab, choose create page, and it'll bring up another map, and you can create however many you want. And if you want to name them so you can keep them separately, we'll just click here where it says start, and we'll change that to camp. There you go. You got your camp map set up, and you can go through here and set up all your other maps. I'm not going to bore you by setting them all up. I will, however, move on to showing you how to input your other information. So we're going to come over here to the third tab, which is Journal. This is where your character sheets can be set up and your handouts. And this is where you set up if you want to add PDFs or folders to your file. So a PDF is a good way to add your adventure in here so you don't have to open up other tabs. You just have all the adventure in here. So we're going to start with handouts. Okay, I'm going to pull up this. We're going to do a handout for the castle. So let's grab the castle and we'll drag it down here, and we'll go ahead and drop it on this box here with the perforated outline. We'll name it Castle and save changes. Now, if you want to show it to your characters, you just hit the tab Show to Players and they'll all see it. Now we'll add another handout. Add this picture of Joan of Arc or Jeanne d'Arc, and we'll name it Jeanne d'Arc Fight. Save changes. That way when you're describing the fight that she has later in the game, you have an image to show along with the description. With that, we'll close the handouts and we'll hit Character. This is how you're going to add all of your NPCs for the adventure. Now for NPCs, you're generally going to want a token. Now for cutting tokens, I use token stamp roll advantage. You can use any one you want, but since I'm showing you how to do it, I figured I'd tell you what I use so you can do it the way I do if you don't have one you prefer already. Okay, so we're going to start with an image. Let's go ahead and grab a picture of Iago. We'll drop that in there. We'll center the image how we like. And with this, since it's got kind of a creamy background and I don't necessarily want that brown poking through, we can change our background color to generally match the color of the image. There we go. Now we'll choose our border style. If you like the basic one, feel free to use it. If you want to use a square or something that looks a little more stone-like, take your pick. And then whatever color you want. If you want to do all your heroes as blue, all your villains as red, do what you like. In this case, I think I'm going to go with like a blood red. Once I get everything looking how I like, I'm going to click download, save the image as Iago token. Okay, now that I have that image saved, I'm going to pull up my images. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the main artwork and I'm going to drop it here. And then the token I'm going to drop here. We're going to save changes. Now that we've saved changes, it's going to bring up our character sheet. It's currently set on settings. We're going to move to core. Okay, once we're on core, we're going to come down and find Iago's character sheet. Okay, now that we have found Yago's character sheet, we're going to go ahead and split my screen so I can just copy and paste. We're going to need to edit the character sheet, put in his name. We're going to save changes at that point. And here we are. Now, since this is an NPC and not a player character, we don't need all the information like class, archetype, and background. So I'm just going to transfer the more important information. So in this case, what I'm going to transfer is his CR. I'm going to put as his class. So his challenge rating of 1. His under archetype, I'm going to put that he's a medium person immortal. And I'm going to come down here to rolls, which is melee and tank, and I'm going to put that as his background. Just so as a game master, when I pull up Yago's character sheet, I can see this important information. Level, I'm going to set for 1. Wealth does not look like it is something that's on here, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that. His speed being 30, I am going to fill out. And then once I have that filled out, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to start doing his attributes. So we got an 11, 16, 12, 16. With the attributes, you can hit tab 4 times after each one you've entered, and it'll take you down to the next one. Now that we've got their attributes entered, we're going to look at their saves. Their saves are going to be Dex and Constitution. So we're going to click Dex, we're going to click Con. So now that we've got those set, we can move over here to hit points. Their hit points, as you can see, is going to be 33. Which is going to be based on a 6 hit dice, and the hit dice are D8s. That way, if they need to use a second wind, you know how many dice you can roll for healing. Their defense is a 14. Okay, looks like they have armor, which is chainmail, and it's going to be armor value of 1 with a +2 save. Okay, we're going to scroll back up and do our skills now. So they've got acrobatics, deception, perception, persuasion, and stealth. Since they're an immortal, we're going to assume they have historical weapons. It's one thing, unfortunately, they never put in here is what equipment proficiencies they have. So generally, I'll just set all equipment that they have on them as basic, or I'll just fill out all 4. Okay, so now we get to weapons, and it looks like they have a longsword and a crossbow. So let's see if I can make my life a little easier. Since I have the main book, I'm going to check Compendium and see if they have a crossbow. And they do have a crossbow. So we were going to drag that onto the character sheet. And as you see, crossbow pops up. Let's see if they have a longsword. So we got sword, sword cane, and two-handed sword. Well, we'll drag the regular sword on here, and we'll see how its stats match up. Okay, so with the crossbow, we've got a 5 attack, we've got a D10 plus 3, so it looks like the crossbow is 100% correct. We don't have to modify anything. With the sword, you can see that they got a +5 attack, and the damage is a D10 +3. So we're going to click the cog here, and we're going to edit a few things. We're going to change that from strength to dexterity, and we're going to change the damage here from 1d8 to 1d10, and we're going to change the ability to dexterity, and that will give us the 1d10 +3 and the +5 to attack. With that being correct, we will hit the cog again, and there we go. We've got our weapons. So that takes us to the last couple things we need to do, the actions and their talents and feats. So we're going to click that 3 times, since it looks like we have 3 abilities to add over. The first one is going to be Immortal, and you can type everything in if you want. I'm lazy, I prefer to cut and paste. So we got Immortal in the description. We're going to change it from feat to other, and we're going to do the same thing with the next 2. So we got Vital Strike, change that to other, and the information for Vital Strike. And the last one, Deceptive Trick. And you can hit that cog wheel to minimize all of them. Then if you want, you can click Bio and Info. Then you can do a snip of this and drop it in here if you want. It's not necessary, I never do, but it's something you can do. Then at that point, you are almost done with your character. The last thing we need to do is we need to come up here back to the journal. We're going to left click on Yago, drag his name out to the map. You're going to drop it, and you can see here there are 3 bubbles. None of them have any information in it. We're going to click the cog wheel, and it'll bring up this, and we're going to change represents character from none generic token to Yago. We're going to change the green bar to hit points, so HP. Then we're going to change the second one to defense. There we go. Update default token. Save settings. Now if you delete that token, grab Yago and bring him back out, you can see his hit points and his defense are saved on here. That way, as you play, when Yago takes damage, you can just click the hit points and enter how much damage he takes. So if he took 3 points of damage, hit -3, hit enter, and it'll do that math for you. So that way you're not having to, okay, he's got 57, what's 57 minus 15? It's done for you. Or if you know they got 4 hit points left, you can just hit 4, and it changes that to 4. So that's handouts, that's maps, that's characters. Only thing that's left is if you want to add a PDF file. So if you want to add the adventure, you can just click. So here it asks if it's already in your library. Since it's not, you can hit no, upload PDF now. You can click on that, and you can click on your location, find your PDF, so Highlander, and you can add it there. Change this to Highlander. hit Save Changes. And you can see it's going to take a minute to be processed. But once it's processed, you can pull open your PDF and your whole adventure is right there. In this case, it's a lot of information, so what I would probably do is I'd probably cut it by chapter, so that way instead of having to scroll through the whole thing, you could just be like, okay, I need chapter 1, click chapter 1, run through that, and when you move on to chapter 2, you could click chapter 2. That way you don't have to go through the whole PDF every time you open it. But this is just me showing you how to do that. Now that I've shown you how to set up an adventure in Roll20, you should be good to do it on your own. And as always, I'd like to thank you for joining me, and I ask that if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Also, if you have any questions or input, please leave me a comment. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.